foot rub while we're doing this?
Nope.
Okay.
You can give me one, though, because my shoes are off.
Goddamn Bilbo Baggins over here.
All right, Randy. Fretful Dreams. I think we're on episode 7 now, I believe.
I believe you're correct. That is.
If not,
yes.
we're going to stop counting at this point, probably.
Who's counting?
Today, I think we were wanting to talk about an artist that was pretty special to you that you did something for, but we'll get into that in a bit. But
yeah. This is a very cool story in my opinion, and I hope other people think it is. We all have those bands, we have those groups, whether or not they're some major giant, major label group, or they're a group that's just kind of been grinding for a long time, who's done their dues. We have somebody who really inspires us in some sort of way. For me, and I'll ask you in a second because I'm interested in your answer. But for me, I got out of the Air Force in 96. Had never played in a band before. I've been playing guitar for, probably 7 years around this time. Yeah. And, I was trying to be I want to be Eddie Van Halen. I want to be this. And you had to be this really a ridiculously good guitar player.
Virtuoso.
Yeah. And by no means, please don't take this wrong. By no means am I saying this artist that I'm going to tell you about, this band that I tell you about, weren't incredible guitar players, but it was different for me. So I was like, I could never be in a band because I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So I moved from Valdosta, where I was at, and moved up here and near Atlanta, where I'm still at. I started kind of getting into a little more of the punk scene, where before I was a hair metal kid.
Right.
And was thinking, well, maybe I could play in a band or something. And then some friends of mine let me hear this band. And the band we're talking about today is a band called Hot Water Music. And actually, the 10th of May this year, they just released their 10th studio album.
30 years, right?
And 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years, man.
That's pretty awesome.
And, we're talking about guys that are grinding, and we're talking about guys that are really, really putting in work. And back in the 96, 97, when I saw them, these guys were hand to mouth, and I don't think some days they even could afford to eat, but they were doing what they wanted to do, and I had so much respect for that. And it went from going to see this incredible, this musicians that I would see before, I'd went and seen Van Halen and some stuff like that, to all of a sudden I felt like I was really part of what was happening. I was part of this show, and it was I always said it was my religious experience. And they stuck with me. I've loved this band ever since. Oh, by the way, the good thing about a band who's toured a while, okay, if you've toured a long time, their shirt sizes get bigger. So they got
accommodate the audience growth.
They got big boy sizes. So I got me a shirt. So anyway, yeah. So so the band that really made a huge difference in what I started getting into, what I started listening to, how I started playing, how I started kind of thinking about songwriting, was a band called Hot Water Music. And they're out of Gainesville, Florida. Yeah. Been around for, again, now on 30 years. So
I don't know if you've heard this story. I heard this recently about them, about the name. Mm-hmm. Did you hear about the label that tried to push them off of the name?
I actually just recently read that same thing. I had no idea.
It's so cool. So
tell it, please.
To go to their credibility, because
mm-hmm.
I guess they're on smaller labels. They've never been on a big major label.
They've been on some bigger name labels, but nothing major. Right, right.
So some major label, and I'm not sure which label this was, had an act coming out that wanted to call themselves Hot Water Music, and they were like, you got to stop using the name. The name's ours. And they came back and were like, nah, that ain't going to happen. We've been using this forever.
Right. And we toured state lines.
Yeah, we've crossed state lines. Screw you.
Right.
Yep. You don't have a leg to stand on. The label came back and went, okay. We'll pay you $100,000, I think was the number I heard. I don't know if that's correct.
Right.
And they were like, nope. Fuck off.
Yeah, I just read that same thing, and again,
and now that band had to call themselves Hot Water instead, or something like that.
Right,
went nowhere, of course. But
right, yeah.
So
yeah, they are definitely it's more than just the music. They're going to do what they know is right. They're going to stick to their guns. They are, I was in a show one time where they were playing at Masquerade, the old Masquerade, and some guy decided he was going to spit in this girl's face, and I was like, no, that's not. And I grabbed the dude, snatched him to the ground, held him down until everybody got there, and then he was like, they don't even know. They didn't see this band years ago. And I'm like, I know one damn thing. If you did that in front of Chuck Ragan, he'd have beat your ass. I can guarantee you that right now. So you need to get the hell out of here. That's not what this is about. Yeah. That's not who we're trying to be here. So yeah, they've been a huge influence on me and a band that I've always loved. There's very, very few songs that make me tear up. And they have a song called Minnow. And after losing a bunch of really important people to me, I cannot hear that song without crying.
Right.
Like, no doubt. It's going to happen. It's one of those things where if you've been through some of the struggle, they were kind of emo before emo was a thing. Only they weren't cheesy.
Yeah,
know?
I mean, like,
right.
Like Fugazi era emo.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. And they just posted a picture the other day. Hot Water Music did of them sitting on Ian McKay's porch redoing the old
redoing the photo like everybody's.
Right. So yeah,
nice.
So that obviously Fugazi's a huge influence on them. So yeah, comes full circle.
That's killer. So when you started your guitar building company.
Yeah.
There's a tie into Hot Water Music.
Well, 2.5 years ago, I believe is what we've figured out now. This is I can't keep up. It feels
we should say it's been exactly 2 years since you built my guitar.
Right. The very first guitar I ever built for you, which as much as I love that, it was not a complete build.
But still.
But yes, it's been exactly 2 years. That just popped up on
that was what, your third guitar or something
memories.
Like that?
Yeah, that was guitar number 3. Yeah. Exactly. So that just popped up on our memories. Memories. So anyway, I had decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to push myself. And I, like probably everybody in this world, suffer through some self-doubt. If I tell myself that I'm going to put a guitar in somebody's hands, number one is, what would that do for me? It would force me to want to get better. It would force me to want to do all this stuff, which obviously I do anyway. But it's going to give me this goal that I feel like I can work towards. And I was like, Hot Water Music. And Hot Water Music had Chuck Ragan, Chris Wallard, who is still in the band, but he no longer tours with them. And I was like, okay, well, I got to hand this to whoever I build it for.
Right,
so Chuck Ragan. And so I told myself, I'm going to build a damn guitar for Chuck Ragan. And that was 2.5 years ago.
And I remember you saying that.
I told you.
I was like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So it was always in the back of my mind. And then Christmas came around this year and my wife's like, okay, I got you something special. And she's like, I got his tickets to a Hot Water show. And I'm happy because I haven't seen him in a while. And she's like, they're in Atlanta. I was like, okay. She goes, no, there's more. She said, I got us VIPs. It's a meet and greet. We're going to be backstage. There's like a cap of like 20 people. And we're going to be backstage and you get to meet him. And she kind of gave me this look and I knew what this look was about. And I was like, well, I guess it's time for me to get damn work, isn't it? She's like, you know what you're supposed to be doing. And so I started thinking, I was like, all right, what would I do? What would I build him? And years ago, he used to play Les Pauls and he used to play, all this kind of stuff. So I started kind of thinking about it. And one day I looked at, actually, I think I was building,
My Futura.
I was building Lola, excuse me. Yeah. No, your Futura.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. I was building Alice. I was building Alice, and we were talking about how great that black limba was, and I was like, I've got more black limba.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build him a Futura out of some black limba.
And that black limba just sounds so damn good somehow too. That is not a wood that people. I mean, we'll talk in another episode about tone woods or whatever, but that is a wood I don't see people using often.
You don't realize it, but it is.
Oh, is it really?
So limba is Carina.
Okay.
Karina
okay.
is the name that Gibson came up with
For
Limba.
Limba. Okay.
So they use white Limba because it doesn't have streaks and stuff. And so when you start looking at your 58 Vs and your all that stuff and your Explorers, that's all Limba. It's just white Limba.
Is black Limba heavier or lighter?
It can be heavier because it's got deposits in it and stuff.
Okay.
But it all just depends.
Gotcha.
Every piece is different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know what Limba is, you just don't realize it.
That's funny.
Gibson
Okay.
called it Karina, so nobody knew what the hell they were using.
Gotcha.
Right. So it's definitely one of the original kind of tone woods.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I built this guitar, and in typical form, sometimes I find these happy accidents, and I had an issue with this guitar and realized, okay, well, that's not gonna work. And
What was that?
I had just some finish issues. I tried a different product, and unfortunately, two things didn't work together.
So did you have to sand this down?
So on April 27th, the guitar was getting ready to be put together. Now, keep in mind that this show was May 15th.
Right.
All right, so you're looking at what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oof.
And I had to sand the entire thing down, and I was like, it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. This may be a little bit cheesy, but I wrote some lyrics, some Hot Water music lyrics inside of this guitar when I glued the neck pieces together.
Right.
And one of the lyrics I put in was, "After all, we can only do our best." And that hit me, and I was like, dude, I can't say no to this. I have to do what I got to do.
To finish it. Yeah.
And so what ended up was, where I had this really slick, shiny paint job, I ended up redoing the look of the guitar, and I used this ebonizing solution that you taught me about, or that you suggested.
Yeah, which is just random. That just came up in my feed.
It's been sitting in my closet for 6 months, and I wiped it on a scrap piece of that wood and went, this is what I've been trying to do anyway.
So were you painting it solid?
I was using a black candy so you could still see it, similar to what I did to Alice, but with black. And unfortunately, something did not work right.
Yeah,
and
the candy's a pain in the ass.
It is. And so what I ended up with is a lacquer sealer and true oil on this guitar after I ebonized it, and it feels like beautiful raw wood.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
It looks really cool. Well, I'll throw some pictures of it up over.
Yeah, we'll pull some pictures.
If you're on YouTube, you can see those.
So 2 days ago, Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, the day that changes all things in my mind right now. I'm the first person in line. My beautiful wife and I are the first people in line, and to do this meet and greet. And everybody's looking at me like, what the hell's this guy got in his hand? Why is he carrying a guitar case? Why is he? So after talking to a few people, then I got people, hey man, let me see it. All this kind of stuff.
Did you show anyone before?
I did. Yeah. Well, first thing is I had to,
Yeah.
They had to check it, to get through the thing.
Make sure it wasn't a gun or something.
And the dude is like,
Yeah.
let me see that again. Can I see that again?
Nice.
Hey man, you got a card. I gave out probably 200 cards the other night,
Nice.
Old school cards. But anyway, I walked up after they finally opened the door. I walked up and was like, now keep in mind, I talked to him for moments on I think on Instagram, just, hey man, I have this gift that I would like to get to you.
He had no idea.
He had no idea what it was. And he's like, all right, cool. And I'm like, I know I'm not stalking you, man, but like, it might be hard for me to get this thing inside, this, that, and the other. And we just never really had this exact, this is going to happen. He's busy, and I'm a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes. I know it. So I was like, okay, I just got to believe it's going to work. So get in line. Some people, they changed where we had to go. So we moved, and these people were like, no. He gets up front. Like, get him up front. He gets up front. And so there's 20 of us.
The other people.
Yeah.
Paid.
They allowed
Nice.
us to come up front. I made some, I can't remember their names, but hopefully they reach out to me, because they were the greatest freaking dudes. And they really made Sharon and I feel like they were supporting us. And the whole damn line, I felt like, was really kind of supporting what I was doing. I was like, this is really cool. So anyway, walk inside, and I'm assuming he was a tour manager. I can't remember his name. Walks up and says, Chuck, this guy's got something for you. And I walked up and said, hey, I'm Randy. And he goes, oh yeah, we've talked. I was like, yeah, I built this for you. And then that's when things just.
Yeah, there's a great video of that. Maybe we can fly a little bit of that.
Yeah, we will. I don't want to put all of it out there because it was a personal moment. But so my goal was to get a guitar to Chuck Ragan, and that happened.
Not only did it happen, but my thought was like he's going to be like, oh, that's really cool, man, that's sweet, and
Thanks,
maybe
man.
play it a little bit at the pre-show that he did for you guys,
or maybe my whole thing is maybe he'll play it and be like, oh man, I'll put this in the studio and maybe I'll use it on a track. How cool would that be that one of my instruments got played on a Hot Water track?
Right.
I was like, that's all, and I told him like I expect absolutely nothing for this.
Yep. Well, so instead, he puts it in his rack.
So basically, they played a couple songs acoustically, and then he kind of waves me and goes, "I'm going to play this thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I thought maybe he was going backstage or whatever, but Masquerade really doesn't have a backstage. So he works his way through all the backline gear, their last band playing. So his stuff's back there and he's trying to figure out, like he's working to get.
This is still before they let in for the show, right?
Oh yeah. Like he's literally working to find a way to plug this thing in. Like he's having to do some work.
Yeah.
Like he's setting up the stuff.
Because you got Quicksand's equipment in front of him.
You got Quicksands, you got Off With Their Heads, which God, incredible show by both those bands.
Are they local?
No. They're
they're both touring with them.
So anyway, he plugs it in and he plays. About 2 minutes, he's playing stuff. Meanwhile, Hot Water's other guitar player, Chris Criswell, and I are talking, and he's asking me a bunch of questions about stuff. And then Chuck Ragan turns around and he says, "This thing's really solid."
Stout.
That's what he said. This thing's really stout. He's like, "This thing's stout." I look at my wife and I'm like, there's a possibility he might play this on a song tonight.
Yeah,
like
he's going to stick it in his rack.
There's a possibility that the tech will walk up to him and I'll throw it over his shoulder and I'll be like, it just. Then a little while later, he comes out and he goes, "Hey man, I'm going to have my tech just check it out real quick. And, but yeah, I'll catch up, man. I'll see you. And so he walks back, does his thing, and the guitar's gone. And then 20 minutes later, the tech comes and sits it on a stand and he's taking pictures of it. What's going on? Okay, cool. And then the band start playing, and I'm trying to enjoy the show, but the whole time I'm like, that just happened. Like all that I was completely out of it.
Kind of half able to take in
Quicksand
and all the other
I had to stop myself and go, oh yeah, this is one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Between Quicksand and Hot Water Music, that was my 90s playlist.
Yeah, you got to make a guitar for Quicksand.
That'd be awesome. He was playing some Offset stuff.
Was he really?
Yeah,
so Space Dolphin for him.
I happen to have, So, but anyway, long story. Still going to be long because I ramble.
It's a podcast. That's
right. It's a podcast. Is what we do. Chuck Ragan walks out. Hot Water Music comes out. He puts the King Electric guitar, Futura 2 model over his shoulder and proceeds to play like he's been playing that guitar for 20 years.
And play it for the entire set.
20 fucking songs.
And how many times did he have to tune it, Randy?
Once.
And really not even have to tune it much.
It took him it's on video. It took him 6 seconds to make sure everything was in tune. And then the next time he went to tune it, he checked his tuner, he looked at me, and we both just died laughing. And
and he's used to the big G.
Yeah, that G string that likes to he's used to that. And So, not like he didn't have other guitars to play.
Yeah.
And some point in the set, he thanked me. And not expecting it, I had to beg, borrow, and steal to find some of this footage, but there's footage out there where he thanks me for building the guitar, and then he says, "I've been trying to beat the shit out of this thing the whole night, and it's still in damn tune."
Yeah. Well, and you got like a "way to go, Randy" from the crowd, which
that was ridiculous too.
Pretty awesome too.
Yeah. So I was teary eyed pretty much the whole damn night, and I'm sitting there at one point, and I'm like, I realize that he's about to come out and play this guitar. Like I realize this is about to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my wife and I'm in the very front of the stage and I'm like, I'm about to freaking cry. And these dudes are looking at me like, what in the hell is wrong with this guy? So when he actually called me out about the guitar, they're like, holy fuck, you built that? They thought I was losing my mind. They thought maybe they didn't know what the hell was going on. Yeah. So I've been on cloud nine since.
Called in sick to work the next day. And said,
that was already a thing. I'm old. I know better. So I still have a day job, folks. And I was like, no, I'm not going in. I actually called in sick the day of, not sick, but just took time off. Don't fire me. I make too much money doing nothing. I actually called in the day of because I was so nervous. I really couldn't concentrate. I was nervous. I felt like I was sick. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. That's stressful. And you put what, 3 months into that guitar?
Yeah.
2.5, 3 months?
Yeah. And it's not like it.
Not every second.
Right.
3 months,
Remember, I'm working a day job. So 3 months is what it took me to finish that guitar.
Yeah, weekends and
then, don't forget that 18 days ago, it tried to kill me by deciding, no, we're not going to let this happen quite as easy as you want it to happen. And thankfully it didn't, because it turned out so much better.
How many times has that happened though? Like, it's always a finish issue, and it's like, and it always ends up being better than what we anticipated.
Yeah. Finish issues are suck. Some of the first stuff I ever built was, one of the first guitars I ever built, it ended up getting a contour in it that I wasn't expecting to do because I didn't hold the body very well. And
but it ended up being a cool
what I like to call the spinny wheel of death, shot it across the room. And
right.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, so yeah.
So now we got to deal with this, and it ends up being
right. And then it ends up being what everybody, when they see that guitar, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I'm like, yep.
Well, it's just like the ebonizing solution that came from a furniture finisher. Right. It had nothing to do with guitars. I was just perusing Instagram and went, because you and I are always talking about like more efficient ways of handling the finishing so that it was more
and
streamlined.
And ultimately, I would like to be able to say, okay, well, hey, if I can do this really easy finish, maybe it's going to be a little less, or maybe that's going to cut down on some of the wait time for people, because I don't want them waiting for 6 to 8 months for a guitar. So if we're going to go with basically the finish on the guitar that he ended up with was a lacquer sealer and true oil, and
over that ebonizing.
And it turned out feeling great. It's I'm sure at some point when I reach out and talk to him, I'll be like, hey, if it ever starts getting worn down, this is how you handle it. It's not that big of a deal. But it doesn't look like it's coated in plastic. It doesn't. Yeah. And I think it turned out like that guitar was supposed to.
Yeah. And I'm sure he loves the feel of the neck, that true oil and only neck.
The neck was only true oil. So
which I love on mine. Yeah. Anytime I go back, it's so funny. Like when I go back to any other guitar, even like the Duesenberg, it's like a little stickier.
Yeah.
I notice it, which I would have noticed before, but it just doesn't feel as smooth.
So and then the whole funny thing about this situation is now I'm getting some people who are reaching out and saying, well, how long did you and him collaborate on this? And how did you, and I'm going,
Zero.
So I built this guitar. I did a little research. I'm like, oh, look, he uses the same bridge that I put on Ryan's guitar.
You had his strap locks, you had his bridge, you had his string gauge,
I did do some research, and I talked to somebody, and I'm sorry I forgot who exactly this person's name. I'll thank you somehow. But he's one of his old techs, and he said, oh yeah, he uses Ernie Ball 11s. This is his setup. He's not too particular. I would set it at this and let it roll. And that's exactly what I did. And
played the whole set with it. Yeah.
20 songs.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a really cool experience.
Well, and then afterwards, like just the social media barrage has been kind of hilarious too. Yeah. That was unexpected.
Yeah. And again, I've had people asking, well, when did you and him talk about building this thing? And well, this, that, and the other. And when I say, well, we didn't, he's like, well, why did he play it then? He didn't know what it was. And I'm like, I guess he trusted me. I don't really know. But again, I could have never dreamed that would happen.
Yeah, and that's like not a small show they're playing Masquerade Heaven, which a couple thousand people there, right?
And I've done a couple guitars that I've built, and I finished that guitar. What's today? Friday? So I finished that guitar last Saturday.
Yeah.
So you figure that. Like I put it together and finished it last Saturday. I checked it. I made sure everything was cool. I played it for 20 minutes, but I didn't want to beat it up. We did a video of it real quick.
It sounded great.
And then trial by fire. If I've joked around and said I've done some trial by fire, but dude, you aren't beating that one.
No, that is the biggest trial by fire we've
like
had,
I don't know if I'll ever top that at this point.
Yeah.
I hope to figure out a way to, but that's pretty big deal.
And to be honest, man, it there's a thing about a custom guitar when they're new like that I've noticed with at least the last 3 you've made me with the wood necks.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first one we did had the metal neck. It's a little different, but had the EGC neck on it. But they change a little bit over the first month. Like you'll play it and like every day it'll be like, this was like a different guitar a little bit. Sounds a little different. So like it hadn't even fully become a guitar yet.
No.
It'll be interesting to see. Like we're gonna try to have Chuck on the podcast here at some point, maybe over Zoom or something.
He was
be fun to ask him.
I can't wait to talk to him about this situation a little bit. I don't want to like fanboy out on him. Yeah. But and then tonight, by the way, they had so they played that gig last night, which was Thursday. They had a day off. Tonight they're playing in Dallas.
So we'll have to.
So I'm trying to see what he's playing in Dallas tonight. If it's got a G or if it's got that big king across the front of it.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. So
we'll see.
Like I said, man, trial by fire. I've on a personal note, was going through some kind of like, hey man, here it comes again. Here's that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And
that just kicked the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, look, anybody who's talked to me, I love talking to people. But yesterday you couldn't tell me shit. I'll tell you right now, you couldn't.
You don't know what you're doing, Randy King. Yeah, well,
right. That happened actually. Somebody on Facebook, I suggested using a certain tool, and they're like, "You can't do it." And I was like, "Don't say it." But I was like, I could just show you a video of something that I did that dude just grabbed and played 20 songs with.
Yeah.
Please don't take me as being arrogant right now. I'm kind of joking, but yeah, no, seriously. Yesterday you could not.
No, well, and
you couldn't ruin that high.
We got to talk. We should do an episode on imposter syndrome at some point because it is a serious thing for anyone who is a real professional that's not narcissistic.
No, and it's not. So I mean, it's not. You and I don't do the same things. We do different stuff, but it's the same.
It's the same thing. Oh,
right.
I like, like I said, we'll do a whole podcast on it because we're getting to the end of this now, but we'll do a whole podcast on that at some point because, I don't care how big you get. It's always going to crop up.
Oh, great. That makes me.
It never. And I see it in, I've seen it in people that have 30 years of $1 million businesses, consistent, $1 million years, and they're still. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
My 2.5 years and my shekels that I have in my bank account right now are not really going to get any.
You're right. And like I've said before, this is kind of like how electrical guitar company started. I mean, I think he gifted a guitar to Buzzo from the Melvins, and it kind of took off from there. So you just never know.
Yeah,
you never know. It does not say that will happen here, but
I was bound and determined that guitar was getting there somehow, whether or not I got the okay or not. I actually reached out to the venue. I did it as polite as I could do. I did, I reached out to the venue and asked for help. I did everything I could to make sure it happened, and it ended up being such a breeze. And then when it happened,
and now Chris has said very nice things about the Space Dolphin, which is cool.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that.
We'll see what happens there.
Maybe we can get Chris a Space Dolphin.
I might be trying to work something out there. We'll see. So
I will say that everyone that has seen the Space Dolphin, and these are all people that I value their aesthetic opinion.
Yeah.
And every no one has gone, what the fuck is that?
Right.
Or not in a bad way. They've said, what the fuck is that? Like, I want one.
Right.
But everyone has aesthetically said that thing is gorgeous. Yeah. So it's, I think we're going to have a winner there too.
That's
the
awesome.
Futura and the Space Dolphin both have a very unique look. I mean, there are other guitars that are in the vein, but they don't look quite like a Futura.
Right. It's funny you just said what the fuck is that, because there's a video that'll be out on my website, my social media, where Chuck is shouting out that I gave him the guitar, and he holds the guitar up and you hear this guy go, "What the fuck is that?" Like he's trying to figure out what it is. He's been trying to figure out what the hell he's been playing that whole damn night. And then you hear that fucking guy built that. Like it's oh God, it's hilarious.
That's
so
great.
Anyway, that's my ridiculous. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to top this, other than my child being born and marrying my wife and having just look at me being all sappy. Those experiences. I don't think I've had a more proud moment in my entire damn life. And
what would have to top that now?
Shit, I don't know, man. I really don't know.
What's the Steve Vai? That would be hilarious. Actually.
Billy G, getting Reverend Billy G a guitar would be absolutely ridiculous. Eddie Van Halen would have been, number one. You know what I mean? But
sure,
it's like at this point, shit, just what I've done. And again, I'm not taking anything away, but those people are cool. But I have like a personal thing with Chuck and with Hot Water Music and with his band. And I can remember where I was when I heard songs, and I heard, so it's, that might have been like one of the biggest.
The pinnacle. Yeah.
Nice. And if so, I'm cool with that. Let's just start getting guitars and let's just start,
get them in people's hands and get them playing.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Because if I can hand it to you and I don't know, an hour later, you can play 20 gig or 20 songs.
Right.
And Chuck doesn't stand there.
He's beating the shit out of
He told me, he's like, "I'm going to beat the shit out of this thing." I'm like, "Please do."
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know, did it handle it? And, well,
seems to have.
Yeah. Let me not jinx it, but anyway.
Killer. Well, that's it for this episode, I think. But make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and definitely if you watch us on YouTube, subscribe and click the bell icon. You can find Randy on at King Electric Guitars on Instagram, and your website is kingelectricguitars.com.
kingelectricguitars.com. If you would like to discuss anything, ask questions, kingelectricguitars@gmail.com is my what's that thing called? Email address. Yes, thanks. King Electric Guitars on everything but Xtina or whatever it is now.
And you can find me at jimmyether.com and Jimmy Ether on pretty much everything as well. And then Fretful Dreams on YouTube. If you search for Fretful Dreams, definitely leave us a comment. And if you got, you can also leave us a comment apparently now on Spotify, but we can't answer the stupid comments, which sucks. So somebody did ask a question, and we'll try to get to that next episode. But
that's a good idea. I didn't realize we couldn't answer.
I didn't either until you sent me the reply, and I went, "Damn it!" So you can only leave a comment on Spotify, but if you want to leave a comment about like what we should talk about or something, we will get that and publish it. And then if you leave a comment on YouTube, we can reply to that, and we'll answer any questions you have and try to work it into the podcast.
Give us some ideas. Tell me that I'm a big dumb idiot.
That's my job if nobody else does it.
Right. Yeah.
But you can do it too.
You and maybe my mom.
And your wife.
Okay, I'll give her that one too. Yeah. All right. Those are the only three. All right. Anyway.
All right.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to me gush about myself for a minute. Sorry. It's not always going to be like this, but kind of a big deal.
Sweet. See ya. Fretful Dreams is part of the Headphone Treats podcasting network.